Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SearcherCast by Greenville Ghost Tours. My name is Dustin Bays, and I'm the director of Truth Searchers Paranormal Investigators, and I will be your host alongside Gabe Mathews, certified paranormal investigator and founder of Truth Searchers Paranormal Investigators. Join Gabe, myself, and our guests as we share paranormal experiences, media, and current events. What evidence will the Truth Searchers find this time?
Hey everyone, it's the SearcherCast, and I'm Gabe Mathews. Dustin, this is where you say I'm Dustin.
Oh, I'm Dustin.
Yeah, and so we're back at you with another SearcherCast. So Dustin, I was thinking about it. What do ghosts do for entertainment? You know, they can't go to a movie theater. They can't watch movies. They can't interact a lot. Do you think they play games, or what would a ghost do for fun?
Is this a joke or a trivia thing? Puzzle?
No. I'm just questioning.
This is just like a hypothetical sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't think they can read books and stuff. What would you do if you were a ghost?
If I was a ghost, I guess you would just watch people, right? You just kind of hang out and watch people. Maybe travel. Yeah, travel. Because traveling has got to be really expensive. You have time. You have nothing but time on your side.
Well, I was mostly thinking playing games. I'd probably play a lot of games.
Oh yeah.
Like hide and seek. Wouldn't that be pretty?
Oh, those sort of games. I was just my mind immediately went to ghost video games where maybe, I don't know, could you possess an Xbox and then inhabit the game or something?
I mean, if you think of Poltergeist, where the TV static and they can kind of interact, but you'd have to be probably a poltergeist that can interact with the environment a little more. Because if you're just a residual ghost, you're probably not going to be able to interact much with your surroundings, and you probably wouldn't be able to play video games. You want to introduce our guest?
Yeah, mostly because they're going to know a lot more about what you just said than me. But I was hanging on there by a thread. Yeah, I would love to introduce our guest, because our guest today is a good friend of mine. We did college improv together. I think we were roommates at one point. You were over at our place enough where if you weren't, it definitely felt like it. And yeah, please welcome to the podcast my friend Matt Reiser. He's a producer for Dumb Industries, and they do the live stream for Mystery Science Theater. Welcome to the podcast, Matt.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I do have to say, we don't do Mystery Science Theater. We work with the people from Mystery Science Theater. There are some people who work with Mystery Science Theater who would probably be very upset to hear me.
Yeah, I was here
steal their valor in that way.
You're right.
No, that's an exaggeration. We all like each other, but Riff Tracks and then them and then us. We're kind of the big riffing triumvirate right now, I guess.
Yeah, well, so tell us a little bit about it. I introduced you as we're college improv buddies, but obviously
we did college improv together, which is the most embarrassing thing I think you could admit on a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. And at one point we were trying to make a podcast.
I think it'd be less sad to just be we did porn together at one point and just be like, oh,
yeah, everyone's like, oh, well, we all go through a phase. But yeah, tell us a little bit about you for those who don't know you. Give us a crash course. Who is Matt Reiser beyond college improv?
Who is the man behind the mask? So I'm Matt. Hey everybody. Dustin and I did improv and stand-up together in college. We go back a long ways. The last decade or so I've been in New York City, and right now I'm working for Dumb Industries, which is a company that my good friend Chris Gersbeck started. Me and him and one or two other people work together, and we produce all of the live stream content for Freight Conniff and Trace Boyu, who are the mad scientist characters, the Mads on Mystery Science Theater. And they riff new movies every month. And actually, we have a new one coming up on May 14th. We're doing the John Carradine film, The Wizard of Mars. They did a horrible science fiction version of The Wizard of Oz starring John Carradine.
Whoa.
That sounds absolutely amazing.
Is he related to David Carradine?
He's his dad, yeah.
What year is this?
He played 71, maybe, I want to say. John Carradine was in a lot of garbage movies in his life.
That's before Alien. That's pretty old. That's kind of my, if it's before Alien, it's old.
Oh, is that your benchmark? That 77, 78? 79. Star Wars for me is kind of my benchmark. So yeah, I guess 77, late 70s, yeah.
Yeah, I've been checking out your stuff. I really like it. You call it Dumb Industries, but the content, it's not dumb. So I found that interesting that it's called it dumb, but it's It doesn't.
Well, it's all a matter of taste.
Yeah.
A lot of that is Chris's is doing. Chris and I have known each other for a really long time too. He actually came when I was doing Witching Hour, which is another show that we do on our YouTube channel where I play a horror host, and we kind of do a mystery science theater show where I riff on usually an ABC after school special from the 80s because those are kind of short and they're fun and weird. We did Stone starring Scott Baio, and we've recently done A Very Delicate Matter, which is a VD movie starring Zach Galligan from Gremlins.
I watched the one about the teenage shoplifter.
Teenage Shoplifter is the second episode we did, yeah, and that one's my favorite.
That was
Chris
hilarious.
plays Columbo in it.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
But yeah, so I've known Chris forever. So I did Witching Hour when I first came to New York as a live show at this place called Lucky 13 Saloon in Gowanus, Brooklyn, which is a big horror metal themed bar. And the premise of the show is kind of like what the premise of the YouTube channel was, is that the audience is dead and in hell, and because they were such terrible sinners in life, they had to suffer the worst fate in hell, which is having to sit through a comedy show in a bar on a weeknight for all eternity. So it was like hell themed, but it was also kind of like inspired by like a lot of bad comedy shows I went to, and like everything kind of fucked up and didn't work right, and like there would be like horror props, but they'd be like falling apart, and I'd be trying to like put them together while the show's happening, but then I'd also like vomit blood and shoot fire at people. It was a good time. But
that sounds awesome.
But I booked him on that show, so I booked Chris on that show, and we just kind of became friends from that. And he did a show for the longest time at a bar in Astoria, New York, called QED. Well, I guess it's a comedy venue. It's not a bar. Called Movies Are Dumb, where he riffed on movies, and that's where we all kind of met Frank from Mystery Science Theater and began our relationship there. So Movies Are Dumb eventually morphed into Dumb Industries as the pandemic happened, and we went online and found that we had a huge audience online. So even after everything opened up, we just kind of kept going, and here we are.
Sweet. That's all sounds awesome. I like the witch character. What was your inspiration for that?
So in Witching Hour, I play Brother Ichabod, who's a servant of the Dark Lord Satan, and he's a character I've been developing over several years who has a lot of weird quirks. He's a single father. He has a demon baby named Shamian, who he occasionally has to share joint custody with his ex-wife, Gardenia, Mistress of the Damned. He's the sort of host of the worst punishment in hell, and he thinks of himself as this very big and grandiose demon, but he's just sad and pathetic. But the inspiration is like the Crypt Keeper meets Rob Zombie and Alice Cooper kind of aesthetic, because I love horror hosts, but there's not many that like play it straight. A lot of horror hosts are very, hey, like I'm Billy Bones and we're gonna watch a movie, and it's a whackety schmackety time.
They're the comedic relief of the show almost.
Yeah, and I play that character. Well, I don't know. It's morphed a little bit over time, but when I first started doing it, it was just like it was very serious, and I just like screamed the whole time. That's why I've debated coming on the stream as the character, but when we shoot Witching Hour episodes, which is part of the reason why it takes so long for them to come out, we have to find a location where I can scream enough that people like don't call the cops on us, because I'm like a full volume yell to do that. And yeah, so it's like I love like Kiss and Alice Cooper and Rob Zombie and stuff growing up, and love horror movies like the Halloween movies and Fright Night. Tales
Are
from
you
the Crypt.
into Rob Zombie's films or music or both?
Bit of both. I don't know. Like I mean, like I like that. Well, like it. I mean, a lot of it's bad, but I I like that he just does his own thing, and he's just like, he's just out there making his music about werewolves and his movies with his wife.
I'm a big fan of his music, and I respect that he does his own thing on the movies, but I guess everyone, it just has some weird choices that, I wouldn't have went with, or it's not like my taste, but I do respect it. Like, I think Devil's Rejects is probably my favorite movie he did.
Devil's Rejects is the best.
And then, I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. So then the rest, falls. But outside the Munsters was pretty bad.
I didn't even see that one.
Well,
so, like you got me
I know
on
that he's like a huge fan of the Munsters, and I thought, oh, he's gonna like nail this, and I think he'll nail it. And he spent a lot of money to kind of recreate, I think, Mockingbird Lane and all that, and he had a lot of detail. And then you watch the movie, and it's like horribly bad, like confusingly bad. So I don't know if his movie career is still going on after that, but
I don't know. I know he keeps trying to make movies that aren't horror movies, and they keep falling through, and I think that's starting to discourage him, because I know for like years he was working to develop this movie about the Philadelphia Flyers, because the Philadelphia Flyers in the 70s were like psychopaths. It was basically like the movie Slapshot, but in real life they all looked like me. They had like long hair and like these crazy beards, and this was in the time when, your hockey stars were like clean cut and nice guys, who slapped the puck into the goal, and then you had just like these like crazy men come, and and other teams would have something called the Philly Flu, flew when they came to town because they just didn't want to get. They would just get into like these like bloody fights just on the ice and everything. And Rob Zombie was gonna make a movie like that, and I'm like, oh my god, like a horror director doing like a sports movie like that, and that is such a good idea. But after years of them trying to get that done, it just fell through, and I think he wound up making 31, a movie where his wife fights a little person who's dressed like a clown Hitler at one
And
point.
that's one I haven't
So-
seen. So, but yeah, he always casts, his wife and, his friends. But part of me like respects that. Why not? You're doing what you enjoy and get your friends to do it with you. So,
Yeah, that's all of us basically. Is just like it's like I get like the occasional person who's like you only have your job because you're friends with Chris, and I'm like, yeah,
And
like it's. I mean, we've known each other and worked with each other on a bunch of stuff that he knows I'm like dependable. But yeah, the start of it was that we were just good friends, and we, at a certain point you have to demonstrate that you're more than just good friends, that you're able to do the work and get the job done. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing stuff with your friends. I don't know. I'm like the anti-nepotism preacher. Like, I'm like
well, I was thinking like, if I made a movie, would it be good? I hope so, but maybe it would suck. Because I always, for a while there, like I watched the first Omen, and it's amazing, right? And then the Omen sequels aren't that good, especially 3 and 4, right? And so it's like, oh, well, I want to do another Omen if I had all like the money in the world. But now they did a new Omen, and I haven't seen it yet. But I was like, damn, they took my idea. So, although I wouldn't have made a prequel.
yeah, that Omen, they keep trying to advertise that new Omen, and I don't think it's working because I feel like I see ads for it constantly, and it's never stuck in my head longer than like, oh, they're doing another Omen, and then because it doesn't really look like an Omen movie, it just looks like a random possession movie that they slapped.
To me,
Omen
the
on.
Omen doesn't work if it doesn't have Richard Donner directing, and I think that's the whole reason why all the
that's a lot of
sequels
it.
weren't good. I mean, Richard Donner made this amazing horror movie, and he's not even a horror director, and I think that's why The Omen was as good as it was. Now, I haven't.
A lot of the best horror movies are made by non-horror directors. The Exorcist. I mean, John Carpenter didn't start out as a horror director, like.
Yeah, but I guess he became one.
is it Jordan Peele is making a rise in the horror genre?
Yeah, these people, it's when you just sit down and just try to tell the best story you can. I think that's when you get good horror movies, not when you sit and you try to, let's make a spooky, scary movie. No, just tell your story well and just, be true to your characters.
But I am going to give First Omen a chance, and I think it could be good. It seems like, what, a Rosemary's Baby type thing? Or, I mean, what else can you do with a prequel to a baby being born?
Yeah, because he was already a kid in the first Omen. Yeah, what's the prequel?
Well, it opens up.
Like, you get to see
it opens up and
you get to see Satan impregnate
the baby's
mom.
born. So, or like just gets born, and the father's a jackal. So I'm excited to see like a jackal have sex with the mother of Damien. So I'm
That's
thinking,
fun. Is little baby Damien gonna do devil stuff? Is it gonna be like the dancing baby from the '90s, but he's doing like evil devil stuff to people?
I'm thinking he won't get born until like the last. So I think that's why it's kind of.
Oh,
Or
okay.
I'm expecting because I imagine it would end right when the Omen begins, which the baby was just born. So I think it's just impregnation.
Remember when people had new ideas?
This is sounding a lot like the third book of Twilight.
Yeah. What happened?
Yeah, tell us what happens in Twilight, Dustin.
Don't quote me. It could be the fourth. But basically, the whole book is about the main character, female, being pregnant with Edward's baby. And the whole thing is just basically porn, them getting it on, and then her diary of being pregnant.
Sounds hot.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking this movie is going to be like. We're just kind of based off of what you guys are talking about. You have some sort of demonic entity getting it on. Baby's going to be born towards the end of the movie. This is just Twilight. This is just Twilight all over again.
I've never seen Twilight, but
The Omen franchise is out of hand.
well, I like Omen, but just the first one.
I mean, the first Omen's great, but like the sequels are all. I can't even tell you how many sequels there are. It's been rebooted so many times.
There's 4, and then the first one, so the 5. There might have been a made-for-TV
Well, I
thing.
thought there was another one after the. Yeah, I thought there was another one after the Julia Stiles one.
Which one was that?
But before this current one.
So I watched the first 4, and 4 was really bad. But I think the Omen could be a great franchise.
What if Damien has a sister now? I don't know.
Like, so Omen 3 was the best sequel though, because he's like going into Congress.
Oh, is that the one where he's Sam
yeah,
Neill?
Sam Neill. And I think Sam Neill did a really good job. It just
That's the only one I've been curious about. I've still never seen it, but I have been curious
so that's
about
the
it.
best Omen sequel, but that's not saying much.
It's a real
Yeah,
low
but
bar.
I mean, if Richard Donner directed it, I think it'd be awesome.
Well, and also Gregory Peck is just so great, and once you lose him, you lose a lot of gravitas. Like Damien, put the cat down, Damien.
Yeah, there were some cool kills in the second Damien or Omen, Damien Part 2. Some lady's eyes get picked out by crows. But so,
Spoiler alert.
well, that's the other thing. Yeah, so I mean, this is the Omen. I mean, I'm sure everyone listening to this have seen all the Omen movies, I'm sure. But Omen 2, they didn't even have the dogs, because the first movie, the dogs are always around. But in the second movie, they don't even have the dogs. It's like, why didn't you have dogs hanging around?
It's so weird. Do you think that any of these people, when they made these movies in like 1970, whatever, thought that 40 years later people would still just be making these bankrupt sequels to them? It's like when you watch the original Halloween, it's just such a good and concise movie. And then you just see what happened with all the sequels to that and how it just gets out of hand. So
I saw like a
crazily.
timeline of all like this movie is so obviously 1 and then 2 is a sequel to 1 and then 3 is like
Yep.
completely
3 has nothing to
Season
do
of the
with any
Witch.
of
It should be
them,
called Season of the Witch. And then they tried to
which is a wonderful.
then they try to
film.
go back, and then after a while they decide, oh, this is just going to be a sequel to the first one, and then they did it again.
Yeah.
And then Rob
so,
Zombie
so 1,
ones,
2, 4,
remakes.
5, and 6 are those are yeah. So you can watch them like 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, which that's the timeline where Laurie dies and Jamie Lloyd is a thing, and also Michael Myers is evil because of druids put a curse on him. I think that's the plot of the latter ones. But then you can watch them 1, 2, 7, and 8, which is the H2O Resurrection. Which Resurrection is such a garbage movie, and I love it so
forget,
much.
is H2O a sequel to 2 or a sequel to 1?
It's a sequel to 2. They keep that she's his sister, and I think Josh Hartnett at one point says that you watched him burn, which that happens at the end of 2.
And then obviously the Rob Zombie 1 and 2, which are remakes.
The Rob Zombie ones are their own thing, but then the new ones you can watch just the first one, and then
the trilogy.
the new 3.
Yeah, and then that
and
guy.
now they're working on another reboot right now. Yeah, they've already said they're doing a TV show, and it's going to be a complete reset. And it's like, oh
well,
my
and
god.
the guy who did all the Halloween ones did The Exorcist, which I actually was gonna watch it, and then I heard how bad it was, so I don't know if I'm gonna watch it now.
It's like a meme, that movie, the thing where it's like, I couldn't participate in my daughter's exorcism because of patriarchy or something. It's just like forced in weirdly.
I think I still will watch it, but I'll watch it more as like a bad movie. So I'm excited to watch it as a bad movie now.
Oh yeah, it's a meme. Yeah, it's like Morbius or something.
It's like Scary Movie, but they were trying to be serious.
Which makes it even better because those scary movies are awful, most of them. That's what I've learned in my time with Mystery Science Theaters, that movies are only truly funny when the person was really trying and then failed terribly, which is mean, but like it's...
Scary Movie's interesting because I remember when those came out, like I went and saw them in the theater and I loved them because I was probably like, I don't know, in 5th grade or something. And then I rewatched one of them on TV and it was like so bad. I don't know. They seem to not hold up. I don't know if you guys...
I feel like a lot of those like teen movies from the early 2000s,
Like date movie and superhero movie.
not another teen movie. Yeah, that's what that one was.
Not another teen movie is okay, but that was the first one where it has kind of a real
The
story.
Zucker brothers did pretty good. I mean, Airplane and Top Secret.
They did Scary Movie 3, which that's the most watchable of those ones.
And I haven't rewatched it, so maybe that's the one to watch.
It's got some okay parts in it. I remember the best bit in that is when they reenact when the sheriff comes to visit the guy, Mel Gibson in Signs, and it's Charlie Sheen playing the Mel Gibson part, and him and the sheriff are talking to each other, and every time it cuts back to the sheriff, her hat is slightly bigger than the time it was before. And by the time she gets to her car, her hat is so big it like barely fits inside the car. That's a classic Zucker gag. But yeah, I only recently watched Top Secret, and that's a wonderful movie.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, recommended. But yeah, I think Scary Movie is ripe for a reboot. I think making fun of horror films is a fun thing. And, we could do one now, a Scary Movie, make another Scary Movie.
Maybe that's the one that you remake.
Maybe I'd have to get the rights, or I could call it Spooky Movie.
There you go.
You could do like a whole Scary Movie reboot that just makes fun of rebooting scary
Exactly.
movies. And that's like the joke of it.
Well, that's what I always thought that they should do with like Austin Powers, like now. Make the Daniel Craig one, but still have Mike Myers be like an old rugged, but make it serious, but then make it funny. But they'd probably fail and make it terrible. But in my head, it seems, man, they could do a really good job with that, but they'd probably fuck it up.
We know Mike Myers' brother Paul. He's been on a couple of our shows before. He's a cool guy.
Old Paul Myers.
He works with oh my God, were they the Kids in the Hall,
yeah.
right? Yeah, I think I'm saying
Did
that.
you guys? Did you see the reboot? That was great.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. I always get Kids in the Hall and the State warped together in my brain for some reason. It's like a wire crossed. I always have to make sure I'm like, it's not the State. He works with Kids in the Hall. Like those like 90s sketch groups, they all like intertwine in my brain for some reason.
So I think they showed them on Comedy Central like all at the same kind of times ish.
But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, going back to what we were
But
talking
yeah,
about.
scary movies are good stuff.
Hey, you see any good horror films lately?
What have you been watching? Yeah, what have I been watching
So
lately?
I have not seen any from 2024 yet, which I need to start because it's already May. But I normally keep up with it.
Ghostbusters doesn't count.
I mean, it's not really a horror film, but I do my horror paranormal, so I include anything that's paranormal in my lists. So it would count for me because if it involves a ghost or anything paranormal related, then I count it. But yeah, Ghostbusters isn't genre related as horror, but yeah, that would have been the one I saw.
Yeah, I haven't been watching a lot of like scary movies lately, but I've been going through, I found a YouTube page that just has every Tales from the Crypt episode on it because it has some nebulous rights issue right now, so it's just on YouTube freely and no one can really do anything about it. And I've been rewatching
So I bought the
those.
box set DVD on eBay, and it's fantastic.
Oh, I've got the DVDs of those too. Yeah, it's a good
I've been
set.
slowly going through them. I think I'm on season 3 because I watched them as a kid, but it's like I hadn't seen every one. But I mean, it's in terms of
They're so well
they
made.
are. I mean, it's in terms of what's the name of the Twilight Zone, Black Mirror anthology in terms
series.
of horror anthology. I mean, for me, it's Twilight Zone, and then Tales from the Crypt is so good.
Which that's another one where you had just like a lot of non-horror people working on it, and that's why it's good. 'Cause you had like Richard Donner worked on it, Robert Zemeckis.
It's actually incredible who's all worked on it at one point or another. Because you'll see, oh, what's this?
Arnold Schwarzenegger directed
And that's
an
a really
episode of
that's a really good episode where they
Yeah.
each part of the person, and at the end, it's like, yeah, I don't want to spoil it for those who are going to watch it, but
Yeah, that's the one about like the dating service, right?
the old
I might be thinking he might have been on
we'll
a
go ahead
different
and spoil
one
it, but it's
too.
the old guy who wants to date this hot woman, and
I do know, yeah, where he gets like
Yep.
the transplants from the
Yep.
other guy. Oh, that was him that directed that.
I don't know if
Huh.
Arnold Schwarzenegger directed, but he actually was like the crypt keeper in that one.
Oh yeah, he's in the wraparound.
He's in
That's
the wraparound.
right. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, he actually directed another episode later on in the show where it's like it's about like a dating service.
Okay, I didn't know that, so I'll get to that eventually. But yeah, slowly working through them. But yeah, it's great. Like I just watched one with Bobcat Goldthwait. Yeah, it was a great one.
What's your favorite one that you've watched so far?
I have to pull up my notes.
While you're talking about that, just in general, if you don't know what scary movie to watch one night and you're just looking for something that's a good movie length, season 1 of The Crypt is like 7 episodes long. It's like the length of a feature film, and every single one is
So I actually
wonderful.
have season 1, episode 3. Dig that cat. He's real gone.
We watched that on one of our shows not too long ago, yeah, with Joey Pants, where he gets the cat lives implanted.
Yeah, I thought
into
that was
him.
really fun. And I actually have the Switch, which is the Arnold one, as my second. But yeah, I guess I'm on season 3 somewhere.
Oh, those are good. And it really holds up as a show until like season 7, which, and this doesn't really spoil anything about any of the episodes, but they moved the entire production of the show for some reason to London. So all the shows become British inexplicably, but also the quality of them goes way, way down. Like you could tell like they just had their budget just hacked to bits or something and probably moved for budget reasons. And that last season's not good.
Well, I mean, that's every show if you don't set a hard end.
Yeah, see, 7 or 8 seasons seems to be about anything most shows can sustain. Star Trek The Next Generation lasted 7 seasons, and it started getting a little bad toward the end, and they were just like, done.
South Park, maybe.
Well, cartoons sometimes have a little bit more of a shelf life, but...
You know, I've always wanted to go back and rewatch. So I started rewatching X-Files because that was always one of my favorite shows. And I think I'm on season 5 on my rewatch, but I've always wanted to rewatch, after Mulder kind of left, because I was like, at the time I hate it so much, but I was like, I'm sure there's a couple really good Monster of the Weeks that I probably missed because I was mad that Mulder wasn't there.
Yeah, I definitely remember that time when he was gone, and a lot of the frustration was, yeah, Mulder's gone, but also it felt like there weren't as many Monster of the Week episodes. Everything was about the big interweaving plot line, and Scully's baby. What's going to happen with Scully's baby? And I'm like, I don't care. Just fight a werewolf or something.
Did you watch the rebooted X-Files?
I watched 1 or 2 of
10
them.
and 11. So I watched both of them, and my takeaway was if you're a really big fan of the show, I think you'll like it, but it's not for newcomers. And it's like the idea of like, oh, modern X-Files seems like so awesome to me. It seems like there's ripe for so much material, and I feel like it was they just didn't do a good job with it.
I didn't watch season 11, but I did watch most of season 10. I just remembered watching it. It felt like they were trying so hard to meet every single need of every single type of X-Files fan. It's because they had 2 episodes that were about the storyline, and we have to have a funny episode for the people that like the funny episodes, and we need to have an episode where we revisit an older episode, so we get those
And I remember
people.
Kumail Nanjiani was in it, which is interesting because he's in the new Ghostbusters. He was in the new Men in Black that was horribly bad.
He was in the Obi-Wan show. He just
He
keeps
was in
popping up
Twilight
in these things.
Zone reboot as well. And it's but
Oh, he's in the best episode of the
oh,
Twilight
that was a
Zone
really good
reboot.
one actually. Yeah, I like Kumail, but he's in all the bad versions of all the things that I love.
He just keeps popping up in all these properties. He just pops up in the background. You're like, how did you get into this one, Kumail?
Oh, he was good in Ghostbusters.
He's in the
He was
Eternals.
good in Ghostbusters.
When he showed up in the Obi-Wan show, that was the most jarring thing to me because you're just watching Obi-Wan. You're like, Kumail. It felt like when you watch like the MTV Movie Awards, you know, when they insert a comedian into like an older movie for like a gag.
Yes.
It felt like that.
I did have, as we're approaching the end of the podcast here, I did
As I've blabbed and ruined all of our time together.
quite the contrary. This is exactly why I was wanting to get you two together, because I knew that you would be able to bounce off each other in a way that I think Gabe probably misses sometimes, talking to me about horror movies. But that was going to be my question. Gabe, you mentioned like the new X-Files, not necessarily great for a newcomer to the franchise, to the genre. You two being horror aficionados, for someone like me who is new to the genre, or maybe spent their childhood being very afraid but now wants to maybe explore the genre, what would be your top 5, top 10, if if we're spitting them out quickly? What would be your top 10 horror films, or maybe like horror media, if there's a really good show you think,
Well,
for newcomers?
as you were talking about, the first thing that came to
Okay.
mind is Twilight Zone. A lot of,
Yeah.
and it's not really even that hard hitting horror. It's actually like a lot of covers the genre, but it's there's a lot of meat in that show. And a lot of great ideas come from that. And I mean, there's so many things that you watch that and like later on, it's like, oh, they stole it to make this movie or something. So I think Twilight Zone's a good one. I think then if you're into grittier horror, I think Tales from the Crypt would be that. But that's a lot more nudity, a lot more grimy, a lot dirtier, which I like it.
There's a lot of episodes that are like softcore porns almost, where there's not even really any horror stuff. It's just like, like seedy people cheating on each other and murdering lovers.
Well, that's
and-
kind
And
of
this was called Tales. This one, which one was this again?
Tales from the Crypt.
Tales from
Well,
the Crypt.
that's kind of the
That's one of our
theme, is
things.
the people are like shitty people, and it's if you're a shitty person, you're gonna have bad things happen to you, and that's the theme of the show.
Yeah, that's the plot of every single Tales from the Crypt
Yeah.
episode is, there is a bad person who does bad things, and then they die ironically through supernatural means at the end. Or get theirs in some way. Not always die, but
It's like 80s thrasher films if you're like a hyper Protestant.
they're like fairy tales, or like, it's like parables.
As far as movies go, I would say Halloween, The Thing, Alien, The Shining, and then I don't know, Rosemary's Baby.
But yeah, like any of those that are like just a real filmmaker who made a scary movie, those are all great things. Like The Exorcist, I think, is a great starting point, especially if you're an adult and you're not quite so scared by demon stuff, because it's not really like a scary film when you watch it as an adult, but it's just such a good movie. And it's just like, and you feel the stakes and everything. It doesn't really like scare you, but it sucks you in, because it's less someone was trying to make a creepy movie and just someone was just trying to tell a story well,
Yeah. And then Suspiria has always been a good one of mine. And then and the remake is surprisingly good too. Hereditary would be a next level, like kind of modern one that I loved a lot.
Would The Omen that you were talking about earlier, would that make the list?
Definitely The Omen. For me, it would be up there.
I don't know. I think good movies for horror starters, and these were what my mom started me on when I was younger. In the 80s, there were a lot of good horror light movies. There was, like Fright Night's a good movie where it's not necessarily like a horror movie, but it's got good atmosphere. It's a good Halloween time movie. Roddy McDowall's in it. It's awesome. Chris Sarandon plays probably my favorite vampire in fiction in it. That's a great movie. Or like The Lost Boys even, where it's just like Joel Schumacher, and it's not really like a slasher movie or like a scary movie, but it's just got it has the aesthetics there. I think if you're going to attract new people to horror, like you got to lead with sort of like the neat aesthetics of it.
And I
you
agree.
know?
And I mean, Ghostbusters for me, I mean, if you look at that movie, it's like shot
Oh
like
yeah.
a horror film, the first one. And the second one maybe too a little bit, but more so the first one. It's if to introduce people to like some scares and some elements of horror, and Tales from the Crypt Keeper, the cartoon. I watched that a lot as a kid.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a good for kids to get
That has some
started,
solid
get them
episodes.
started, on a cartoon kind of thing. Scooby Doo's a good series though. There's some good
Yeah,
Scooby
well,
Doo stuff.
absolutely. Yeah, it's mystery suspense. I know my nephew, the one that you met, Gabe. He is just turned 9, but he's watched all of Stranger Things, and that was his introduction to really the horror genre.
Oh yeah, that's kind of like a horror light thing for younger people, kind of.
Yeah, I mean it's hyper fantasy horror, but still like horror in the sense that like Jurassic Park is like horror, right? Like it's scary, jump
It's scary,
scares.
but you could show it to a younger person without feeling like a bad parent or something.
Exactly. But yeah, he got into that, and that started his obsession into the horror genre, Bigfoot, and all the kind of the paranormal, spooky stuff.
I think we were very fortunate growing up kind of at the time we did that we had a lot of like horror media that was just made for kids, which it feels like there's not so much of anymore, like
Yeah.
it's even that the newer Goosebumps they just came out with is more for, like teenagers, I guess you'd say. But yeah, like when we were kids, there was like Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Erie, Indiana, which was like Twin Peaks for children. That was a great
I
show.
watched Tales from the Crypt, which it wasn't the HBO version. I think it was like the FX or did FX exist?
Yeah, like the syndicated one that cuts out the nudity and the swears.
So it's actually cool to watch it like unedited and be like, oh wow, what's going on here?
Yeah, there's some raw shit that happens in some of those episodes.
Before we get going, Matt, you ever been on a paranormal investigation before?
I have never been. I've been on a ghost tour or two. When my sister got married a couple years ago in Savannah, I went on a ghost tour of Savannah because apparently everything in Savannah is haunted. I don't know if you know that. Literally everything. You're just walking. This Porta John's haunted. And you're like, so I went on one of those
That's
kinds
why
of
I love
things.
Savannah so much, and I have a couple videos on my YouTube channel where we actually went to Savannah to get people's stories. That Savannah is one
Yeah,
of my favorite.
literally everything in Savannah is haunted. Apparently, never have experienced any ghosts or anything. I love ghost hunting programming. I love going on ghost tours because I like the interesting histories of places, and that's why I like ghost shows. I always like to say I like the first half of ghost shows, where you just get to like like so and so was like stabbed in the face in this room in 18 blah blah blah, like and so poisoned. But it's when you get to the second half where it's just like dumpy white guys and night vision cameras just being like, what was that, what was that, that's when it kind of
See,
loses me.
that's me. I'm the opposite. I really like that second part. That's kind of where I focus on.
I'm sure if you're there in person it's great, but it doesn't make compelling television, I don't think.
Well, hey, open invite to come down and investigate with us sometime.
Oh sure.
Be cool to have you, and show you some evidence.
I'm always down. As we've been talking about Mulder, it's like I say, I want to believe. It sounds like a nice time finding a ghost. It just
The only thing that separates a skeptic from a believer is evidence. And as a paranormal investigator, it's my job to lead the horse to the water. And I can get you right to that evidence. And you can use tools to find the evidence yourself and kind of make that leap to
Oh,
know
cool.
that it goes
What kind of evidence have you found?
all over. I mean, every time I go out, I capture an
Oh, nice. Like what? Tell me specifically.
EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon. I mean, there's so many different ways to communicate with a ghost.
Oh,
Orbs.
nice. Like what kind of EVPs have you found
Yeah,
places?
I mean, one of the best ones I have was at the Poinsett Bridge, and it's just not only the oldest bridge in South Carolina, but it's also the most haunted bridge in South Carolina.
I have actually heard
Yeah,
about
and
that.
so it's on my YouTube channel. We did a whole full investigation there, and I used a spirit box, and also I used a proprietary app from a guy on Reddit to find some evidence as well.
So a ghost gave you a text message? Is
No,
that?
no, it's the spinny wheel. So this guy I found on Reddit had a proprietary app that was unfinished. In fact, yeah,
Oh, that's much
yeah, and
different.
actually you could spin the wheel and it generated the words, but it's because of the environment. So ghosts are energy, at least so I believe. So they use their environment to communicate. So I mean, the simplest thing to do is to get a flashlight and set it on the edge. And a ghost being energy can actually turn on and off the flashlight. So you can ask it yes or no questions, and they can turn it off the flashlight. You could do this at your house, and I mean, ghosts are kind of everywhere in general. If you think about, energy is all around us, and there's so many people that have been born and died. I mean, you think if even 1% of everyone who has ever been born and died is lingering around as a ghost, that, you have a 1 out of 8 chance that you have a ghost in your room right now. And that's with 1%. Imagine if it was 10%, then it could have over, there's definitely a ghost sitting in your room, assuming that they'd want to be with you in your room. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what always just makes me sad, is that you're just stuck in some guy's bathroom for all eternity, because you have some unresolved trauma in your life. But yeah, I actually live right near the Greenwood Cemetery, which is a giant cemetery in Brooklyn. It's like 3 blocks away from my apartment, where like I think Jean-Michel Basquiat's buried out there. I think I'm butchering that. I've only ever read that name. And like a bunch of people from Gangs of New York, a bunch of the victims of the big Brooklyn fire that happened are buried out there.
I'm going to have to check that out.
I'm always jonesing to visit a cemetery, and that sounds like an amazing one to go check out. I'm sure you go there frequently,
Plus,
right?
it's just very pretty. It's literally nicer than the park over here, which is kind of a toilet. So yeah, don't if you're looking to go somewhere nice in Sunset Park, don't go to the actual Sunset Park. Just go to the cemetery. It makes me sound like the gothiest weirdo, but it's like a nice subdivision for dead people. It's very well manicured. And all these tropical birds that escaped from JFK Airport in the 60s all live there. So you could run into like tropical birds in the middle of Brooklyn, which
It
is
makes
fun.
a lot of sense. I mean, when I go travel to a city, I always go check out, a graveyard or a cemetery. So it makes sense that they are really nice places and good places to hang out and visit.
Now, y'all are in Greenville. Have you ever been to the weird hidden children's cemetery? That's
Yeah, it's on the way to Furman. Yeah, I have a lot of guests talking about there. We talked about doing a little investigation. Hopefully, we'll film something there. But definitely spooky, having all the children.
That's a wild place. Like, I remember when I found that, because you would miss it if you weren't looking for it. And there's just like this teeny little trail, and you pull off there, and you feel like you're in like Pet Cemetery or something. It's definitely a vibe if you're into that kind of thing.
We'll definitely have to go check that out. Matt, if someone wants to check you out, where can they do that? Where would you send people to check out some more of your content?
OnlyFans is no. Yeah, if you want to check out more of what Dumb Industries is doing, we are our Twitch channel is a great place to start. Twitch.tv/Dumb Industries. We have 24-hour programming we do over there now. I'm now a television programmer as well, in addition to all my other weird job duties. And we host a monthly show with the Mads. Our next show is May 14th. Frank Conniff and Trace Boyu are going to be riffing The Wizard of Mars, John Carradine's horrible 70s Wizard of Oz movie, The Wizard of Mars. And if you're a fan of Mary Jo Pehl from the later seasons of Mystery Science Theater, we just did last night with her a riff of The Devil's Daughter starring Shelley Winters and Abe Vigoda. We have that on our website, dumb-industries.com, behind a paywall, where we've got a bunch of extra video content, where I think you can just pay like $1 and get access to stuff there. So it's super, super cheap. And then me and Chris host a show every Monday where we play video games called Super Dumb Brothers on our Twitch channel, and that's at 8 p.m. And then we host a show every Thursday called the Dumb Industries Mystery Hour, where we watch terrible VHS tapes. And so if it basically just go to dumb-industries.com, and our calendar is up there, and you can see all the stuff we're doing. But we basically do a thing every single night. We actually have a program happening right now that luckily I don't work on, but we've got a bunch of stuff going on.
That's amazing, man.
And that's why I'm always exhausted, and I apologize for replying to you so late, Dustin, because like yesterday I was literally working from like 7 a.m. until like 10 o'clock at night. It was a wild day.
No worries. Thanks for joining us. It's good to see you again, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's great to see you, man.
It's awesome to hear that you're like doing all this cool stuff. My wife and I were in New York pretty much every other summer. So I'd love to get together with you and go see a show or something.
Shoot me a text.
Yeah.
We'll grab some food and hang
and
out.
I'm looking forward to checking out all your content, and hopefully we'll meet again sometime in some form or another.
Totally.
And I guess to end the podcast, I always like to say, the truth is paranormal. And if you wouldn't mind saying, be a searcher. The truth is paranormal.
Be a searcher.
Be a searcher.
And check out Witching Hour on our YouTube channel. I forgot to mention.
That's it. That's all we got for today's episode. Thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Truth Searchers. See you next time.